Hello, my name is Johnny McGurgan and welcome to the second episode of Southbank Stories. We got some great feedback from our first interview with Sheila Dixon, focusing on the early days of the Osborne player. Today we are going to concentrate on the other founding group of Southbank, Trident, and we are lucky enough to have one of the founding members here in the very talented Eugene O'Hare, and he is joined by our very own chairperson, Philip McDonagh. You may see that we are back in the Southbank Hall. We've moved off Zoom. Some of us are in need of a haircut more than others, but we're here and we're very glad to be not staring at a computer screen and enjoying the newly refurbished hall. And we're staying nice and socially distanced and safe. So hopefully this all goes well and you enjoy it today. So now I'm going to hand over to my wonderful co-host, a woman who needs no introduction, Penny Beggs.
Thank you, Johnny. Hello, everybody. So today you can see we're in the company of two stalwarts of Southbank and also of both Trident and Osborne players. Living proof, if any were needed, that drama gets in the blood, and after that there's no escape for the whole of your life. So let's begin at the beginning. As Maria would say, a very good place to start. Maybe you could tell us something about how you both got hooked on the stage originally. Say, Eugene, what was your very first play, very first time you stepped on the stage?
Oh, very first play was when I was at school. I was asked to play Captain Boyle in Juno and the Paycock when I was 14.
Oh, my goodness.
Not the whole play, mind you. It was just an excerpt from the play, but it was in the Belfast Music Festival, which was then held in the old Presbyterian Assembly buildings in Fisherwick Place. And it was fun, to say the least. But I mean, after having done that, I thought, yeah, I like this. Give me some more of this. I fancy this a lot. And went on from there, really. Just it started off with the school productions, and then I joined, but keep it quiet, Ulster Operatic Company. 1965, 66, and sang in the King and I in the Opera House, Belfast. Yes. For my sins. Was never asked back, but obviously it went down really well.
We've never really had enough of your singing. I can remember it sometimes down in Enniskillen, which was lovely.
So this bit will be cut.
A late night treat.
Oh, no. So, yes, after that went on to join various drama companies. For a time was the Belfast Insurance Company and Balnafie Theatre Group, out of which came the Trident Players in 1978.
Was Sean at school with you? Did he do drama in school as well?
No. Sean was the sporting member of our family. I was not. Sean joined later on, certainly he did, and he was a founding member also of the Trident Players.
Was he in the Balnafie group?
He was indeed, yeah. We did several plays in those days, mainly in school halls and places like that. There'd been no festival work, but after a time it sort of was grinding to a halt, let me put it that way.
Was there a specific venue for Balnafie players?
No, absolutely not. We rehearsed in a tiny little hall on the Ravenhill Road. The building is still there. It originally was a school hall, or a school, I should say. And we rehearsed there for some time, and then it petered out. We couldn't get rehearsal space, like a lot of drama companies. And we ended up rehearsing in the Parador Hotel. As long as we bought a drink, we could use their lounge, which was fine. But as the rehearsal went on, the drink won. And the rehearsals usually ended, why are we here? What are we doing? So, which is why we ended up forming the Trident Players. Just three of us, and that's where we got the name Trident Players.
Well, what about you, Philip? How far back does it go with you?
Oh, a long way. Not as long as Eugene. I took up drama at school. In my last year at school, I auditioned for the headmaster of the school, Portadown College, I should say, was a very keen dramatist, and he put on Romeo and Juliet. And I auditioned because I really thought I'd been an extra in the previous year, and I really liked the idea of being on stage. So I auditioned and got the part of Romeo, and discovered that Juliet was Margaret McClelland, who was the
Yes.
also a member of the
Margaret
company.
remembers it
Yes.
with great affection, I have to say.
It was a good experience, and I went on from there. Joined Dramsoc at Queen's and did a few bits and pieces there, and famously King Lear, which was a number of the group were involved in that.
A
that production.
number of our current
Yes,
people.
that's right.
Well, Margaret, presumably. I think Margaret
Margaret
played
was in
Goneril,
that.
I remember.
That's right, and the late Nevin Harris was in it, and Richard Palmer as well, of course. So I was the King of France, which sounds very grand. I'm thinking about 2 lines. So that was that, and then how I joined Osborne was that it was a few years later that Brenda Palmer was visiting a friend in the house where I was living, and said that there was this drama group she was involved with who were looking for an Archbishop of Canterbury. So I
And
thought,
of course, you were the obvious
well,
choice.
yes, King of France. It's hard to move on from the King of France, but Archbishop of Canterbury will do all right. So I went along, and that was how I joined the company.
Oh, that was Enter a Free Man. Or no,
Man for all
Man
seasons.
for All Seasons.
Man for
Yeah.
all seasons. That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I remember that.
So round about this time, then, Eugene, you were involved in several organisations, because
At the time, yes, I was indeed. I was in the Trident and Osborne, and freelanced with another company called the Trident Players. Yes, indeed. But I had fabulous times. We had great times. They were working in the old drama studio at Queen's,
Yes,
the Department of Education
that's right, we
building there.
Dramsoc and of course,
Yeah.
Osborne started. That was our main venue because of Nevin Harris being
That's right.
drama lecturer in Queen's
Lecturer
Education
there at the
Department.
time. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And we had some good shows there. But,
So I'm just trying to think. Your first show with Osborne would have been Black Comedy. I
Black
think.
Comedy was indeed. Yes, I played
An electrician.
a German electrician, Franz von Schubensee.
See, that's what I'm trying to say. And the reason I particularly remember that is because that's the first time I was ever on stage in my life. I played.
Really?
Yeah, first time I was ever tempted, and so I remember that quite clearly.
Good Lord, yeah.
Yeah.
That was good fun. We used to do a lot of those double bills at the time. It was a one-act play, and it was The Real Inspector Hound and Black Comedy.
Yeah.
We did as a double bill. Yeah,
Yeah.
but 2 very funny shows, I have to say.
So at that stage, then that would have been in the 70s.
That would have been about 1974.
Four, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then the two of you were involved in Osborne Players from that stage, and you were all still involved in.
In the Trident, yes. Oh, yeah. Well, at that time, actually, the Trident, it was still Ballinafie Theatre Group at that time. The Trident wasn't actually formed until 1978.
Yeah.
1978, they actually formed the Trident
And
Players.
that was when, you gave it a name. And
That's right.
Why Trident Players?
That's right, because there were only 3 of us left. And we
That was you and Sean and.
a chap called Peter Maguire,
Oh, right.
recently deceased, sadly. But we left a rather fractious meeting, a rehearsal in that hall on the Ravenhill Road, and went back to Sean's house up in Glenholm Avenue, and to talk over things. What were we going to do, and will we go forward, or should we just give it up, or whatever? And then said, no, we'll start our own. We'll go our own way, do our own thing, and trying to come up with a name. And I can't remember who it was, but we decided there were only 3 of us here. Trident, 3 of that'll do fine. That'll do great. Yeah. So we called ourselves Trident Players.
Yeah.
And then like Topsy had growed after that.
So where did
yeah.
your members come from if there were only three of you then? Friends,
Well,
contacts?
friends, contacts, people that I had met over the years and worked with in different drama groups, and you would have telephoned them and said, look, are you doing anything next spring or whatever? Would you be keen to do, the way you work? And we would get people in like that. Mm-hmm. And we had some very fine shows, I must say, said modestly. But they were thoroughly enjoyable, and the group seemed to enjoy them as well, which was the main thing.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
So you were in Trident as well, Philip, weren't you? I mean, we had Osborne and Trident had a lot of crossover members.
That's right, Margaret
McClellan
and Sheila Dixon.
And then, of course, in recent years, once we started Southbank, there were people like Nora Harvey and...
That's right.
And then more recently, Roisin Marshall
That's right.
and Denise
Roisin,
McCann.
indeed.
And I believe Peter Houston was involved pretty early
Peter
on.
was indeed. Yeah. Yes, that's right. And of course, we must not forget Jim Simpson.
Oh, yes, of course.
We must not forget Jim Simpson.
Yes,
Jim,
Man of small parts.
Well, Jim joined the Trident after about 2 years after we'd started. He came along, and he was great. He was fantastic. We worked away. Jim loved doing our sets and things. He absolutely, in fact, he still, up until relatively recently,
yes.
He loved the sets. It was these pesky actors who kept getting in the way of his sets. That really annoyed him.
And he was really interested in the play once it started. Once the set was done, and he was happy with that.
Happy man. Yep, I'm out of here. But he's been great. He's been a great member of the company, and I felt, I feel we should mention him.
Absolutely.
At this point. So yes, we had quite a number of people with a lot of crossovers over the years. Members from Trident, Osborne, and other companies, indeed, coming in and out, which is a healthy thing. It's a great thing.
Yes, of course,
Yeah.
The great Joe Wilde.
Well, the great Joe Wilde, indeed. Yes, the best actor in Ulster.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
At one point, yes.
Tell us about that. That was when you did the Honey
That was a
Spike.
play called The Honey Spike by Brian McMahon.
Are you involved in that, Philip?
I was, yes.
Well, let's not talk about that for the moment. We'll brush over that.
We'll come to that in a minute. Tell us about the triumphs first.
No, we did this play in 1987, and Joe was playing the lead male role in it. And to cut a long story short, we got our show onto the Opera House. And the show did very well, as a result of which Joe won the Best Actor in Ulster Award and was presented with the James Young Trophy,
Wow.
which was solid gold and had to be kept in the safe.
Seriously?
Yep.
Solid gold?
Yep. So he was able to wear it once, get his photograph taken, and then had to go back into his safe. But however, he still has that honour, and he deserved it. He deserved it because he was super, absolutely first class in that play.
Was that the first play you took to festivals?
As Trident Players, it was. It was, yes, absolutely. We did the play in the Ardone in Enniskillen just after it had opened, actually, the Ardone Theatre. We did it there and did it in Bangor. We did 2 festivals. Normally you did 3, but for whatever reason that year, it all ended up on a points basis. Whoever had the most points would get the last place to go to the Opera House. And we would have no idea. We just toddled along to Bangor, did the show, and afterwards I was being interviewed for Downtown Radio, and first question was, how do you feel about going to the Opera House? And I went, what? Really? So, we got through to the Opera House, and that was mighty crack, yeah. That was great crack, yes, sir. And...
So, now,
Yes.
Philip, you can't not tell us now, come on.
Well, the Honey Spike was my first foray into sound, doing sound for the company, for Trident. And
We're always
for anybody.
looking for new apprentices up there, Phil, if you want to have another bash.
Johnny, wait till you hear the end of the story.
the structure of the play is a series of short scenes, so it was quite challenging to put the soundtrack, because there's usually different sound effects for each little scene. And there was a scene early on which was an army patrol out, and they discovered something suspicious and started machine gunning all around them, which was fine. So I had played the track. The next scene was a lovely scene on the beach out in the west of Ireland, and waves and seagulls and calling, and somehow I allowed the machine guns to carry on through to the scene where the seagulls were. So it sounded as if the seagulls were being machine gunned somewhere out in the west coast.
Someone didn't like seagulls at that point.
So that was the first and last time I did sound for Trident.
Okay.
I also did lighting at one point as well. I thought I'd have a go at lighting since I wasn't so good at the sound. So
The Country Boy.
The Country Boy was
The name of the play.
was the play, yes. It was
John
set
Murphy.
in an old farmhouse in the out near Slieve Croob, and we had the set was a beautiful Irish cottage, and through the window you could see Slieve Croob in the background. It had been brilliantly done, probably by Jim, the background of the mountain. So Peter Hewson, as I recall, was in that production, and at one point Peter came into the cottage and switched on the light, and at that point the sun rose over Slieve Croob instead of the light coming on in the cottage. So I'm afraid that was my first and last time at lighting as well.
Oh, Philip, you're very easily put off.
So in answer to your question, Johnny,
It'd be an upgrade, eh?
well, Philip's talents lie on stage. Very, very fine actor, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Very fine.
So, acting parts in Trident, Philip?
Yes, well, I discovered Trident after when I joined Osborne. I quickly discovered the Trident as well, and I was particularly drawn to the Trident because I liked the style of rehearsal that they did, where the main point of the rehearsal, as Eugene was alluding to earlier, was to go for the drink afterwards. And in fact, often the rehearsals became shorter and shorter, and the drinking became longer and longer. And we used to go to the big house in the Pavilion Bar, the first floor there, where we had many's an enjoyable evening until we were thrown out by the patron.
That's right,
Harry Keane.
Harry and Eddie Keane. Yeah. But in fairness to us, those rehearsals, I must point out, times were pretty rough here at the time. And I was always concerned about the safety of the people in the cast, of course, and letting them away early so that they didn't get any grief on the street. And that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it.
Absolutely. Well, there were difficult enough times, weren't they? But interesting that drama went on regardless, all through the Troubles, really.
Very much so. Yeah.
It was the odd incident where you might get stopped by police.
Oh, yeah, that was a regular thing. In fact, if you recall, we were doing a play in Newry with the Osborne Players. It was called Da by Hugh Leonard. And we were just coming up to the end of Act 1. And I was standing on stage with the late, great Stanley Fitzgerald, who was also a member of this company. And we had a duologue just at the end of Act 1. And I looked over his shoulder and saw an RUC man standing in the wings. And I thought, this is not good. This is not good. So we had about 4 or 5 lines. We finished the lines. Curtain came down. Policeman came on and said, "Get out, there's a bomb at the front door." I said, "Okay, right." So we all piled out of the theatre and we were told to go to it was a pub called the Bit and Bridle in Hill Street in Newry. And we all rushed in. And in those days, I don't know whether you remember, you probably do remember, we were plastering awful makeup. Leitner number 5 and number 9.
Number 5 and 9.
Things, which are fine under heavy stage lights. As soon as you walked out into the street, you looked like something out of a circus. And we were all sitting in this bar in Newry, all the cast, at half time up on these stools, having a bevy. And then afterwards, they said, "It's okay, you can go back in now, they've cleared it." And we went in and did the play. It was after about 45 minutes or so. And then we continued on with the play. But the adjudicator didn't allow us anything for that interruption at all, and just thought, no. But that's what happened in those days. Things like that.
Keep calm and carry on, as they say.
No choice. You had no choice. But people were used to it then.
Yeah, we used to
That was
bomb
the thing.
scares and things.
And you work
interrupted.
your way around it. How do you get round? How do you get to where you want to go by not going through a dangerous area or whatever? But we managed and we carried on. Yeah.
That's why the group theatre was so good, really, because it was very neutral territory, wasn't it?
That's
You know,
right.
everybody was happy
In
about
the old
that.
group theatre, which used to be where the Ulster Hall is now, and in Bedford Street for younger members who don't know.
I remember, yes.
The group theatre. Yes, that's right. That was originally was the Ulster, the old Ulster Group Theatre. In fact, that's where they started down there, and it was reopened under the management of, who was it, Terry DeWin,
Terry DeWin.
Oh, yes.
from the Ulster Hall manager
remember
at
that.
the time.
Yes.
Reopened the old group theatre and refurbished it, just for the use of amateurs and the occasional professional production, I have to say.
It was a great resource.
It was a super one, and the fact that it was actually in the city centre was terrific.
But the Trident used to do a lot of Irish plays, and I mean, the Honey Spike was one, but I know you're particularly fond of the Risen People
James Plunkett.
James Plunkett, yeah.
Yeah, that was a great show. Well, I felt it was a great show. I thoroughly enjoyed that. That was it was based on Strumpet City, James Plunkett's novel.
Yeah.
And in fact, it was his script that I got when I wrote to him. And it's based on, as most of you know, on the lockout in Dublin, led by James Larkin, the Labour leader of the time. It's a terrific play, and there were about, I'm trying to remember, I think it was about 20 odds in the cast. But it was terrific. It was terrific fun. We had
Peter Houston was.
Peter was super in that.
Yeah,
Oh,
he was,
absolutely terrific.
Yeah.
But an interesting aside, actually, to that. Sorry, I'm going off slightly. But we did that play in the group theatre. There Isn't People. And remembering the scene now, it was set in 1912 in the lockout in Dublin. And at the end of one of the productions, one of the actors in the company, a chap called Niall Beattie, who's a friend of Mark's, he said, there's a lady in the audience wants to speak to you. And I came down, and fairly elderly lady came up and told me how much she'd enjoyed the play, and that was very, very nice. And she said, you know that scene you were doing there where Larkin appears at a balcony window in the Hotel Metropole in Dublin and addresses the crowd before the RIC baton charge? And I said, yeah. She said, I was there. I was on my way. I was going to a dentist's appointment at the time. And she had seen all these people gather outside the Hotel Metropole, and she clambered up a lamppost, one of the big old lampposts, and hung onto it and watched. And she said, no, I've never forgotten that. I said, I'm not surprised, but it was remarkable being able to talk to someone
Who was actually
there and had
amazing.
seen those events, momentous events at that time. It was quite remarkable. Yeah, terrific. But sorry, that was...
How was the Risen People received generally?
It was very, very well,
Did
actually.
you take it to festivals?
We did a couple of festivals. We did Newry, and I'm trying to remember, did we do Enniskillen? We did Enniskillen, yes, the Ardoin Theatre. Yes, and Bangor. We did it in Bangor as well. I remember having great difficulty trying to get RIC uniform for Joe. Joe Wilde, in fact, was the RIC man in that play.
Yes.
I had great difficulty trying to get that, but I ended up getting one from the police here, the police museum, up in the Upper Newtonards Road there. They loaned me that for a while, but it was fairly well received. I had not so much by the adjudicators. I mean, the adjudicators were, I think, of two minds about it, and that's fine. That's what festivals are for. I had more reaction from the audiences. I had letters, which I still have at home, lovely, lovely letters from people who said how much they had enjoyed it. And in fact, one school teacher brought her class from Newry up to see the play and was absolutely enthused about it because it taught them a part of history which they knew nothing about. about the Irish labour movement of that time and the Irish Transport and General Workers Union struggle at that time to be recognised. So again, it's a great play. It's a fantastic play, and I ended up having a great, not relationship, because I knew him fairly well, with James Plunkett, the man who wrote the thing. And we exchanged letters. We hadn't got mobile phones. We exchanged letters, and he sent me tape recordings of him playing the fiddle. And there's a song in this, or a theme in the play. And he sent me this cassette tape, which I still have. And, he said, "Look, I'm a terrible violinist, and I'm a terrible singer, but I want you to hear what this goes like." And he played it for me, and I thought, what a gentleman. He again knew James Plunkett, which was interesting. All these little tie-ins. He told me he went for an interview. He was looking for a job, and he went to the old Liberty Hall in Dublin, which was the headquarters of the Irish Transport and General Workers Union. And as a young man of 16 or 17, he'd left school looking for work, but he wanted to do something with the union. And he'd been into the Liberty Hall, and he was standing, he said, looking very lost, looking around the place. And this big man, very tall man, came in and said, "What are you doing, son?" And he said, "I'm looking for work." And this man took him in, chatted to him, and gave him a job. And it was James Larkin who gave him the job, gave him the start. And it's interesting that from that, all that backstory, he ended up, and he wrote the most beautiful novel, that's Strumpet City.
Novel, isn't it?
He wrote loads of things, but that's probably from here, certainly is what he's best remembered for.
It was made into a very good film as well.
That's right. RTE did a series.
I think,
RTE did the series. That's right.
Oh, yes, it was a series.
David Kelly. David Kelly played Rashers Tierney.
Rashers, yes, of course.
Rashers Tierney. And Peter O'Toole. Peter O'Toole was in on that as well. And
But just to bring it back to us doing it, and you mentioned Joe Wilde playing the RIC constable, right, and having the uniform. I remember coming home from one of the festivals, I think it was, and somebody had the RIC uniform in the boot, and there was great concern about what if we're stopped, because at that time there was lots of roadblocks, army roadblocks. What if we're stopped by the army and they asked to see them open the boot and discover a policeman's uniform in the boot? We're in big trouble. Fortunately, it didn't happen. But,
I was stopped actually with two RUC uniforms in the boot of the car. I have to say, now this is in Shaftesbury Square one night. I was coming from a play and I was able to borrow two uniforms from the police. They're very good at the time. Like, as long as you told them where you were doing this play, what it was for, etc., and that was fine. So I got these two uniforms and was driving. I can't remember where we were coming from, but I was driving down to Shaftesbury Square and stopped by an RUC patrol. Land Rovers across the road, stopped, and driving license, sir, can you open your boot? And I went, oh. I said, look, you're not going to believe this. He said, there are two uniforms in the boot. I would declare them now, two RUC uniforms in the boot of the car, and explained what we're for. And he started laughing, and it was the last thing I expected. And he said, do you know why we're standing here tonight? I said, I presume it's a road check. He said, we're looking for two people dressed up as RUC men.
Was that for real, or was he?
It was absolutely for real. And I don't believe this. So I opened them, showed him the uniforms, and explained where I'd got them from, and given the telephone number of the inspector up in Brooklyn who'd loaned me the uniforms. And he said, sorry, go on. He said, can you believe something like that happened? I said, with me? Yep. 100%. 100%. Yeah. Oh dear. So, but however, live to tell the tale.
Tell the tale. So tell us, you didn't have what you might call a home in those days, as indeed the Osborne Players didn't have a home either. So you rehearsed in what we all refer to as the Trident Hut.
Oh, the hut, that's right.
Caroline Road.
That came much later. Yes, we did. We rehearsed in several bits and pieces and rooms, and did once in the back of my car. But yes, we were able to get what originally was an old scout hut. Now there's a theme running here. It was an old scout hut in the back of the convent, the Good Shepherd Convent on Carolyn Road. It had been abandoned for some years. And we were able to use the place, and it was fine. It was small, but we were able to do lots of rehearsals in it, actually. In fact, that was the first. We rehearsed The Risen People in there, and that was the first year we were in it. So that was 1989. That's when we were in that hut.
Yeah.
So before that, just anywhere and everywhere?
Before that, we were using that little hall.
Did we? Was it before that or after that we rehearsed in the convent itself in the big hall?
The big hall was
Yes.
before that.
It was before that. Yeah.
Yes, it was before that we used the big old. It was an old recreation hall. It was called in the convent building itself. It was a massive big hall, but by Jove, was it cold when you were rehearsing in there? There's no heat on it, and it was bitterly cold.
And we also had quite often had an audience in the.
Oh, we did
in the
indeed.
convent
Yes,
hall,
yes.
didn't
We had a few of the long term, the girls who lived in the place had been there for donkey's years. We looked after the farm, which used to be up there. Some of them would sit in the back and occasionally watch us, which was fine. You know, it was terrific.
Yeah.
And we also had budgies in the back as well, which were owned by one of the ladies called Bridget. And but she had to come in before we rehearsed to put a cloth over the budgie's cage in case the budgies disturbed us. So yeah,
Right.
it was.
That's good.
But they were nice. They were great. And they're fine. I don't even think they charged us for that place.
And as everybody knows, it's always good to have an audience now and again to sharpen you up.
Oh,
when you're rehearsing.
absolutely! It sharpens you up. Yeah, it certainly does.
Yeah.
But after that, I mean, they were going to. The hut became available, and we decided to take that on rather than use the big hall because it was easier to heat. We had our own access to it, which was a gate in the outside wall on Carolyn Road, which meant we'd come in at all hours of the night, as you know, from doing a festival somewhere, and you could bring in the sets and without disturbing anyone.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
And it was grand for its time. It was small, and God knows it had problems, but we were able to work in it.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, we were all kind of struggling at that time, really, weren't we, to overcome. I mean, the kind of luxury we have now was completely
Unheard of. This is a dream,
fantasy,
an
absolutely.
absolute dream to even get this place.
When you did festivals, would you do summer theatre as well?
We did
Because I
summer
know we were
theatre,
doing
yes,
summer
in
theatre by that
Newcastle.
stage with-
In Newcastle, in the Shimna Hall, we were doing plays there, as indeed the Osborne were, and the plays then ran from Wednesday until Tuesday night. It was the oddest times, but you started on the Wednesday, you ran right through, you had Sunday off, and then it was Monday and Tuesday, you finished off, and then the next company took over at that point. But we were up and down every night, drove up and down every night. Well, not directly home.
Yes.
We didn't drive directly home every night, but
No, just,
we were known to stop off in various places.
Yeah, his feature was this stop off in Dundrum at
Dundrum.
the Savages Bar.
That's right. That's right. It was
It became a regular,
the central
regular
bar.
fixture.
Yeah, it was terrific, actually. It was a lovely place. And in fact, that man was a friend of my father's, which was great because, and his barmaid was my uncle's bridesmaid. Sheila. Sheila
Okay.
was her name. And they were great. And it was like long lost friends when you come into the bar, and they were always delighted to see you. And they made everybody feel welcome.
Yes.
And the clocks would tend to stop at about 10 o'clock and stay that way for a couple of hours, I have to say, in those days. But, times are different. Times are different. Of course, you wouldn't dream of driving a car now with even a smell of drink
No,
about you.
absolutely.
You wouldn't dream of it.
Yeah.
Not
But
at
the
all.
shows in Newcastle were, the audiences were
Massive. Massive. I remember one night we had 15.
as many as that.
Absolutely.
No, that's right. There were
Well, of course,
Some
if you were
nights on
running for nearly a week,
yes, on
I mean,
a
by the
Monday,
time-
a Monday night in Newcastle.
I mean, in more recent years, first of all, it was 2 nights, and then it was right down to 1 night. But at
yes,
least you got
that's
an
right.
audience then.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
we had, when we were in the the Newcastle Centre.
The centre, that's
Yes.
right. Yeah.
So
yes.
you would get.
You could do one or
100.
two nights. We did, in fact, didn't we?
Yeah, but
there.
the
That's
last
right.
couple of times I think it was.
It's
down to
been
one.
it's one. That's correct.
But,
Yeah.
The Shimna Hall was, it was, I think, was it corrugated iron? Was it?
It was,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's 'cause you hear
It
the
was a
train
Nissan
on it.
Nissen hut.
There was an old Nissan hut
That's right,
originally, an
yeah.
old army thing.
And I remember going out one night, and I don't know what day of the week it was, but all I could see in the front row or second row maybe was Norman and Jennifer Campbell, and I think possibly 3 other people. And
It was a fairly good house that night, Philip.
why are we doing this? Is it for?
Yeah, and then I would remind people it's because we're getting paid a
Paid.
fixed sum to do it. That's why we're doing it.
business? Good business.
That's
Paid to do it.
Yeah.
But
And that's when we did the comedies.
That's right, and the rain coming through the roof.
The sound
yes,
trees
under
and
the
the-
set, yeah.
spring and port wine, and
That's right.
Arthur. I remember Arthur Webb was
Oh, that's right.
involved in that one, and insisted on doing his yoga exercises on the stage just minutes before the curtain came up. There was Arthur doing his meditation, and
Peter Houston used to do that before every performance as well. Used to find him lying, at the back,
Oh, Peter was very
Yes.
keen in that, yeah. He would
breathing.
he would
and
chill
his
out.
voice exercises. That's
Yeah,
right.
that's
Yes,
right.
Well, the
he
rest,
still does.
well, the rest of us were standing outside, sniffing a drink or having a cigarette. Peter was doing taking the healthy option. But yeah, we did the Ghost Train. That was the Ghost Train we did down there. Dial M for Murder.
Dial M for Murder.
If
Yes.
you remember that, Philip, yeah,
I do
that as
indeed,
well.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we did quite a few plays there for the summer, but there was no real satisfaction in doing plays in an empty hall. Really, I know we were paid, and we can joke about it now, but it was just.
Yeah. And at that time, Trident and Osborne both did.
That's right.
Sometimes it'd be one after the other, and
And I have done that. I've appeared in
some
both.
of us,
And you
yes.
appeared in both of them.
Yeah. And then had to
Two
go
plays
up,
at once.
had to lie down for 3 weeks afterwards. But yeah, it was good crack at the time. Of course, we were all much younger then, and it was,
Could remember the lines for 2 plays at once.
well, that's true. that's true. We certainly could. Yeah.
And even one.
Yeah. We've always been pretty good at getting the lines right, I have to say.
It's always been a point of honour, really, hasn't it?
Yes,
Been be able to do that.
Yes. And indeed being able to deal with other people's failure to remember lines. Like
Well, that's-
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
Oh dear.
Oh, was it an Osborne play?
That was an Osborne play. If I'm sure people are bored listening to me talking about it, but it was a Tom Stoppard play, which we did in the drama studio at Queen's, and Trevor Moore and myself were playing the lead characters. He was playing Rosencrantz, I was Guildenstern, and the lines are horrendous and very, very difficult to learn, desperately difficult to learn. But we used to rehearse these scenes, and we called them the tennis match because they were like, for instance, one word or something. What's he doing? Who? Him. Now? Yes. Walking. Walking where? And it would go on like that for some pages of dialogue. And it was very tricky. So at halftime, we'd go off into the old lecture theatre and have our tennis match and rehearse these things. So we knew them backwards. So we got onto the stage, doing the play, opening night, and one word was changed. One word changed in the dialogue. And we went from Act 1 to Act 3. And we're running through the lines
It's a
thinking,
prompter's nightmare.
dear God, where are we? But being a Tom Stoppard play, being that particular play, we were able to get away with it. And in fact, I think I said something like, look, stop, we've got this wrong. Let's start again. Which we did. I went through the thing. No one noticed.
Nobody noticed.
Nobody
Apart
noticed.
from the prompter. Who was-
Apart from the prompter, who was being violently ill on the stage.
Although I have to say, you always had a reputation that you would say, well, it's okay, Eugene will sort it out. Just hold your breath and Eugene will sort it out because he knows everybody's lines.
There was a time, actually, strangely, I knew most people's lines.
Yes,
It was the
I know.
strangest thing. I don't know. I couldn't do it now, but yes, at that time, I found it quite easy to do. Because I enjoyed it. I loved it, and I loved listening to dialogue. you know, and it was always great fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, terrific.
Yes, I benefited from that particular skill of yours, Eugene, a number of times.
Oh, no, Philip.
You could tell when my eyes went glazed. You would.
Yes, a sort fell about here. People would nudge.
Oh, dear, no.
But we usually manage to sort things out without.
Oh,
problems,
yes,
really.
yes,
It
we
was-
did.
was something
Oh,
we prided
yes,
ourselves on largely,
absolutely,
didn't we?
absolutely,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when someone forgets a line on the stage, it may last 3 seconds or something, and they're in a nightmare. They think, dear God, what is my next line? Oh, dear God. And they either get a prompt or they remember it, or someone gives them a hint and it's gone. And actually, it's only taken maybe 5 seconds. It seems like a lifetime, and you think everyone in that audience will know that I've forgotten a line, when most of them don't.
No, mostly they don't.
They don't.
And actually, people don't notice prompts even as much as they, because a lot of people, they think a play is a great success if everybody remembers their lines.
Oh, that's
I do remember, mind you, a performance of, because we did.
prompt.
There's Elizabeth.
you know the one that we did with Black Comedy originally.
Real Inspector
Real Inspector
Hound.
Hound, right? We did that twice, I think. But I
That's
remember
right, that's
Stanley coming on at one point with a pair of waders in one hand and a foghorn in the other from the back, because I was prompting that night, and he stood there, and you could tell he couldn't remember what play was in, never mind what the next line was.
Oh, dear Lord.
And I remember thinking, do I dare prompt Stanley?
Oh,
And I think I
Lord.
had to prompt him twice, and he was so angry with himself. He was,
Oh, yeah, he would, absolutely. And I can understand that. I mean, most of us do that. If we forget a line, you find, even here, if someone has slipped one or made a mistake of one, you'll find them outside cursing at themselves, you know, or banging their heads off the wall, thinking, I was so
Thinking they
stupid.
ruined the
You know,
whole
I've
play.
ruined the play for everyone.
Yes.
When in fact, they haven't.
no,
No.
absolutely not.
It happens.
Yeah.
But, yeah, good times.
So we were very close as two companies for a long time, weren't we? I mean, we all knew each other. We had lots of crossover people doing both tech and acting. But really, we needed a home.
That's for sure.
So at the end of the day,
That's
I
for
think
sure.
you and Jim discovered this hall, didn't you?
Margaret McClelland
It was Margaret. No, because Margaret knew people in the Scouts.
must
and
always do. And it was quite by accident, actually, because I had driven past this place and had seen the for sale signs hanging at the front of it, and the windows were all smashed and the doors were broken in the front. And thought, oh, it's a pity about that place. And I was speaking to Margaret, who was then chairperson
She was.
of the
She was.
Osborne at that time. Yeah, and we were both looking for premises at the time, and I said, look, spotted a place in Kimberley Drive, but I don't know. And she said, well, we'll go and have a look at it. And I said, well, if you think so. I mean, she said, I'll get the keys. So Margaret got the keys, and we met here and came into a nightmare of a building with cobwebs literally from the ceiling to the floor. It was covered in ropes, bits of tent, old stuff that the Scouts had left 12, 13 years before. Windows were all broken. No doors in the kitchen, the toilets, anywhere. And we walked around it, and she said, what do you think? I said, it's a terrific floor. it's a really, really good floor. And then we discovered that there was more room out the back here in the old part of the hall. I thought, that's terrific. And so Margaret went and had a look to see how much they were looking for it. And it turned out to be £110,000 to buy, which doesn't seem a lot these days. At that time, it was impossible for us to even think of. And we mentioned this, that we had been looking at this place to John McGeehan, who was also a member of this company, a very valued member, sadly no longer with us. And John said, we can maybe lease it. I had no idea about leases or any of that sort of thing. And John inquired and discovered that we could have the possibility of leasing the place. But then we had to go to our companies, to speak to our companies and say, look, folks, are you willing to join this venture and take
the risk.
take the risk of running this place. And we had meetings in the Trident, and I know there were meetings in the Osborne, and there were joint meetings, each putting their pitch. And fortunately, people decided to go with it. And Stephen, your son, Stephen, fortunately said he would be able to get younger members in the place, and that's what we wanted here. We needed younger people in this place, and we've been relatively successful ever since. In fact, we're still here.
Yes, absolutely.
And we've added to the building. We've put lighting, various things into it. We've done a lot to the building, and it's a lovely venue now. It's a fantastic venue. But really, it was by accident that we came across the place.
And in a way, I mean, the amalgamation in a way was inevitable, I suppose, at the end of the day, to just pool resources.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because mostly what we lacked was somewhere to store things, wasn't it? I mean, you could rent rehearsal space, but
That's right. That's right. But there's also
Sets and costumes.
sets and costumes. and
There's
all
also a
those
good
things.
comfort, I think, in coming into a place that you know that is yours. Albeit we lease it, but I mean, it feels like it's our place.
It's our home.
And there's a great comfort. And as I used to say to people before, it's the best free therapy you can get. People walk into this hall of an evening. I'm directing shows. Many times I've seen people walk in with the worries of the day on their shoulders and all sorts of horrors. And they come in and say, "How you doing?" "Oh, don't ask. They leave 2 hours later, they're bouncing. And they want to go to the pub for a drink and a bit of a chat and a bit of crack.
I know.
Because it is terrific. It's great that way.
Well,
Fantastic.
it's a testament to what you're saying there, the fact that we have, members of 3 generations now, basically. You know,
Absolutely, and that's a bit frightening, but yes.
It is, absolutely it is,
That's why this feels like an obituary, what we're doing here,
So-
Penny. It's a bit worrying, It's a bit concerned about this.
Johnny just wants our memories before we can't remember them anymore.
That's exactly, I think, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, dear.
Good memories. Yes.
Absolutely. So
But,
it's been great, I must say, talking to you both and finding out, because a lot of our younger members, a lot of them will not have known all this information at all, and I hope they'll find it interesting.
hopefully.
Just thank you both very much indeed.
Not at all,
Yeah,
it's been fun. Penny,
really
I have to
good.
say,
Fun,
yes.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's been brilliant. And you may have heard the rain made a little appearance, as it always does.
The
Always
rain
does,
always
absolutely.
makes an
And a
appearance in
little
Southbank.
low-flying aircraft, although they've been
Absolutely.
a bit lesser. But it wouldn't be a Southbank show without some
No,
rain
but
interference.
I have to thank you, Johnny, for doing all this setup here, and to our cameraman who's hidden behind the camera.
Yes, Mark, he's in
Mark
there behind.
Overall,
Yes,
who's lurking behind the cameras and taking care of us.
He does. He wants to buy a clapperboard for the next episode, so you
Well-
may get to see him then.
Who knows? Hopefully there will be more episodes from Southbank.
Absolutely, they will. Mark is always plotting to acquire more equipment of one kind or another. Quite right, too. What would we do without him?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks very much, Johnny.
No
Thanks,
problem.
Penny.
Thanks,
you.
Penny.
No. So thanks very much to Eugene and Philip for sharing your wonderful memories today. Hopefully all of you at home enjoyed it as much as Penny and myself. It's been very informative and entertaining. If you like what you're doing, give us a like and a share. These programs are available on Facebook and YouTube, so share with your friends or anybody you think would be interested or like to see them. Feel free to comment, or if you have any ideas for future shows, you can contact myself or Penny. So just leaves me to say thanks again to Philip and Eugene, and from myself and Penny, we will see you the next time. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.